Sister Mary of the Sacred Heart. Live Jesus. Sister Mary of the Sacred Heart, 1825 to 1903. She was the foundress of the Guard of Honor of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Chapter 1, Day 1. O Sacred Heart of my King, my Father, when will that past day dawn when I shall see the whole earth bow beneath your scepter of love? In this beautiful verse from one of the hymns of the Lair of the Guard of Honor, which flowed spontaneously from her fervent heart, Sister Mary of the Sacred Heart unknowingly revealed what would become the distinguishing mark of her religious life: an ardent zeal to spread the flames of holy love and to win the whole world for the divine King of Hearts. She was born in Besançon on October the 28th, 1825, in a highly respected family. She received the sacrament of baptism at the ancient Cathedral of St. John on the Feast of All Saints. She later loved to remind her fellow sisters of this providential date, saying that throughout her life she would always stand in need of the assistance and protection of the heavenly court. At baptism, she received the name Mary Anne Constance. Since the home of her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Bernot, were located very near the Archbishop Palace, she often had the opportunity to see the Cardinal of Rouen, Duke and Peer of France, and cousin of King Charles X, who at the time occupied the metropolitan see of Besançon. Whenever the Cardinal visited the Division General, who was one of the Bernots family's closest neighbors, he would often find little Constance kneeling respectfully as he passed. He delighted in him blessing and affectionately greeting the child, while the crowds who gathered to honor their devoted father and shepherd also received his blessing. He was known for his goodness and holiness. His reverence before the Blessed Sacrament was itself a silent yet eloquent sermon, strengthening and awakening the faith of all who witnessed it. His recollection before the Eucharist, Lord, was so profound and so absorbed in God that he seemed transformed into someone almost heavenly. Little Constance missed none of these details. When the Cardinal died, she was not yet 6 years old, and she experienced one of the deepest sorrows of her young life. Around the age of 4, through the carelessness of her nurse, she contracted a serious eye disease that caused her suffering for many years. Because of this illness, she was unable to join in the games of her brothers and sisters and was often left alone. This solitude led her to develop an extraordinary love for meditation, silence, and recollection. Sitting beside a window for long hours, she would quietly contemplate the foaming waters of a magnificent fountain located near her family home, peacefully accepting the cross that divine providence had allowed. God had blessed her with a beautiful singing voice, and she often passed the time by singing inspired hymns that gently comforted her during her long hours of solitude. Later in life, she would tell her fellow sisters how, even at the young age, she would be moved to tears while singing hymns such as, "How can there be any rest amid the torments of a guilty heart?" or, "A dazzling phantom has seduced my youth." To a child only 6 or 7 years old, these words were a mystery, yet they brought tears to her eyes. This remarkable sensitivity, which throughout her life would become both a source of deep compassion and profound suffering, was already becoming evident in many ways. One day, while adults were speaking in her presence about the recent death of someone who had left several orphan children behind, little Constance suddenly burst into tears. The tragedy had touched her heart deeply. Whenever a poor person came to the family door, she eagerly begged to be the one to give the alms that her generous Christian family never refused to those in need. As Constance and her sisters walked to school each day, they would pass beneath the portico of a public building where a poor beggar woman, dressed in rags, sat with her infant child. Her sorrowful appearance deeply moved young Constance, who longed to bring her some relief. One day, as she stopped before this heartbreaking sight, she opened her little basket and placed the simple lunch she had brought into the beggar's hands. A ray of joy lit up the poor woman's face, and with deep emotion she thanked the little girl. Having expressed the happiness that comes from performing an act of charity, Constance repeated this gesture the following day and on many days afterwards, even when it meant giving away treats that she herself especially enjoyed. As she walked to school, nature and grace often struggled within her young heart. Yet as soon as she stood before the poor woman, compassion would overcome every hesitation, and with great joy she would perform this work of mercy. How lovingly must our Lord have rewarded these small sacrifices, for He is never outdone in generosity. Little Constance did not yet know the source of the many graces being poured out upon her at such a tender age. Her Aunt Barbara would have explained much to her had her profound humility not imposed upon her a strict silence. Within the family, Aunt Barbara was regarded as a saintly woman. She had a special affection for her young niece and delighted in taking her to church. During her fervent prayers, she would offer that pure and delicate soul to God, like a fresh rosebud still covered with the morning dew, asking heaven to shower its richness, blessing upon her. At that time, devotion to the Sacred Heart was not yet widespread. Nevertheless, it was Barbara's favorite devotion. She even had a sanctuary lamp made to burn perpetually before an image of the Sacred Heart in the church of Rubin, her parish. The Divine Master heard the prayers of the soul completely consecrated to Him. It may truly be said that Saint Mary of the Sacred Heart lived every day of her life under His loving protection. Blessed with an exceptional beautiful voice and enriched with extraordinary graces, Constance became the admiration of all who knew her. It is therefore not surprising that, as she grew older, a slight feeling of vanity occasionally arose within her. But her mother, Mrs. Bernot, knew how to correct it whenever people praised the remarkable qualities of her children. "I have every reason to thank God," she would say, "that none of my 8 children are hunchbacked, lame, or blind." She was indeed the strong woman of the gospel, a worthy companion to her fervent Christian husband, Mr. Bernot. Thus, Constance grew up in a home where the atmosphere was filled with faith and piety. Her soul remained so pure that, while preparing the general confession she was to make before her first Holy Communion, she invited her brother Edward, who would also be making his first communion that same day, to write it together with her. Each child simply wrote whatever came to mind, occasionally asking the other how many times they had committed one fault or another. On April 20th, 1836, in the Church of Our Lady, the 2 children received their first Holy Communion with all the devotion their young hearts could offer. That afternoon, on this unforgettable day, Constance said to her brother, "Let us kneel down and ask God for the grace never to receive an unworthy Holy Communion." Immediately, the 2 children knelt together and earnestly begged heaven for this precious grace. God be blessed.